Welcome back to another episode of Fast Casual Nation. I'm your host, Paul Barron, and as you guys know, we cover probably the most amazing topics ever in the history of Fast Casual right here on this show. And of course, today is no different. We're going to actually have what I think is one of the up-and-comers when you look at the pre-COVID ranking of top fast casual concepts. This little concept in San Francisco was making a move in the market, and I've got the CEO, Mr. Charles Bililies. Great to have you on the show of Souvla.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah. All right. So we got a lot to talk about. I know things have been rough on your business. Let's go into kind of what happened with Souvla, where you are right now as of today, here on the first of September.
Yeah. So we have the sort of advantage and or disadvantage, depending on how you look at it, of operating in San Francisco, which was the first city to go full shelter in place in March. And what was really interesting was we were getting ready for this. I actually sort of crafted a system kind of loosely modeled after the Department of Defense's DEFCON system of DEFCON 5 through 1 in sort of this like state of readiness that was everything from normal operation to full close.
Yeah.
And so this was in the middle of March, and from the moment that we saw this coming, we went regular operation into full close in a matter of only a couple of days. We closed all of our restaurants in the middle of March. I want to say the 18th, and kept all of our team on and hunkered down. We knew that this was going to be going on for quite some time. We didn't anticipate it going on for this long, but we retained all 176 of our employees through the early part of June. We were fortunate enough to get PPP money, and really we closed 100% for the health and safety of our teams. We didn't know enough about COVID. We didn't know exactly what this was going to be, the impact it was going to have. Obviously, we had the advantage of doing a lot of off-premise. And there was a lot of demand for us to be open during that time, but we felt it far more important to take the time, keep everyone safe, educate ourselves. We were fortunate, as I said, to get PPP money, but that only lasted so long. We used it exactly the way that it was intended to be used. We had to lay off our entire hourly workforce in the beginning of June, which was obviously one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. And then we hit a point, unfortunately, where we either needed to get the restaurants back open again, or we knew we wouldn't have restaurants. And it's a really, really terrible thing to be in a position where you have to choose between your livelihood and the life of this business and this brand that you've created, between that and your own life. I mean, I was back in the restaurants, on the front lines with everyone else, working during this reopening time. And so, there's so much to be said for just the abject failure of leadership at almost every level. And it's one of the most difficult positions to be in as a business owner, to have to kind of, constantly wrestle with that. Mm-hmm. But here we are, reopening the restaurants under conditions that were exponentially worse than we had expected them to be when we closed back in March. At this point now, at the start of the month, I'm happy to say that we have reopened all 4 of our brick and mortar restaurants. They are operating with limited hours and with limited teams, but we have begun rehiring back our hourly workforce. And so this has been just really, really quite the journey. We knew that it was not going to be a light switch on off. We knew this was going to be a little bit more of a dimmer situation. And despite our best efforts to sort of ease back in, it was still a little bit of a jumping on a treadmill while it was going at full speed. Certainly when we started the reopening process in July. So, and we were very fortunate to have had just a tremendous outflowing of support from all of our loyal guests, to the point that we just got completely inundated with orders in those first couple of days. Very long lines. It actually broke a lot of our online ordering
Yeah.
technology, and so we had to kind of go back to the drawing board. And so here we are, just kind of settling in. Our operations team is starting to kind of transition out of the restaurants a little bit more, and sort of hand them back to our managers and our line level teams. But we are only doing to go and delivery. We're not doing outdoor dining.
Yeah. Or indoor dining.
We're not doing indoor dining, which is not
Or
allowed in
out,
California.
but
But we're
outdoor
also
either?
not doing we're also not doing outdoor dining either.
Okay,
Correct.
interesting. So would the future success of Souvla be predicated on building a model that's going to be dealing with takeout, delivery, catering, off-premise, those factors, with especially in the state of California, because it's kind of you just don't know. How are you guys going to be looking at this as you go forward? Is this going to be something that is going to stick with the brand, and do you think it will see any sort of a semblance to where we were for indoor dining in the future?
Yeah, we were very fortunate in that we had a very healthy off-premise business pre-COVID.
Yeah,
About 50% of the business was off-premise through a combination of to-go and delivery, and we're very grateful that we've been able to bring back basically all 50% of that business. So we're now running at about 50% of what we used to. Um, with respect to the future, I think that we're going to be doing this to-go delivery when we're going to be operating in this model, certainly through the end of this year. I sort of maintain, and it is a personal belief, and this is not something that should be taken as any sort of negative commentary on all the other operators that are doing outdoor dining. I still feel that outdoor dining is or can be quite dangerous if it's not done correctly. And
yeah,
there are a lot of people that are doing outdoor dining in a way that, despite their best efforts, is not very very helpful. You have populations of people that are getting together. They're getting together in groups. Everyone starts to drink alcohol. The masks come off and never come back on. Those are things that I think are going to be challenging as we continue to try to recover and sort of get back to normal. And so, with respect to your question about the future, like I said, we've been able to pivot in a way where we're just doing this volume that we're kind of used to doing just through those two channels. Our restaurants historically have always been quite small to begin with. We've always had kind of relatively small dining
right.
rooms, so we're not
Yeah,
dealing with massive restaurants. But I think with respect to future projects, we'll definitely start to sort of design with more outdoor dining in mind and less indoor dining as part of any sort of future restaurants.
yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. I've talked to 20 to 30 fast casual operators over the past few months here on this show, and it's amazing the difference in the kind of models that they're adapting. Obviously, most of it being takeout, and delivery, curbside, all these different
Mhm.
factors, but it is starting to seep into the whole aspect of restructuring now their belief on how they're actually going to manage real estate over the next few years. So it's kind of giving them, in essence, a new business plan of how they have to create unit economics, deal with labor, cost controls, all those kind of things. It pretty much revamps the fast casual business for, in many cases, in many of these operators, that is going to be something that's probably going to stick with them for quite some time. Being California, we're seeing a lot of operators that are really, really challenged. This is one of the hardest hit states that we've registered in terms of our data from Foodable Labs. What is it like out there? Are you talking to other operators that are giving you kind of any feedback as to what's happening? Are you seeing, factions within the city or around San Francisco that are kind of starting to move? I've talked to people in Oakland, which has started to actually do a little bit more of a more aggressive reopening strategy. What are your thoughts on that? How that's going to affect kind of the city of San Francisco in terms of dining scene?
Sure. Well, we've been fortunate in San Francisco to have a relatively small and fairly tight knit community of chefs and restaurateurs, and this is, we've always been relatively well, connected. This has just given us a new opportunity to really organize.
Yeah.
It's always been challenging to just organize chefs and restaurateurs with schedules and just everyone's lives and everything else. So there's been a little bit more bandwidth for everyone to really start to come together. We're seeing sort of things happen on opposite ends of the spectrum. On one end, we're seeing local neighborhoods and merchant associations really organize and put some pressure on the city of San Francisco to start to close off streets and sort of create a little bit more of a kind of a European feel. We've seen that in other cities, but San Francisco, two of our restaurants operate. Well, all of our restaurants operate in these kind of small neighborhoods, which has actually been pretty important for us, not only in the history of the brand, but also at this time. We don't actually have a physical presence in any sort of downtown financial district scene, which is obviously the most decimated right now as offices are closed. Right. So we are in these neighborhoods that we're starting to kind of see come back, these small retail corridors. And so by closing the streets, that is bringing more people there, but also from our end, just because we're in neighborhoods where people live and people are working from home, it's a lot easier for people to order from Souvla and walk down the street and place their order and pick it up. So that's been super helpful. So starting to see the closures and everything on one end, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, the city of San Francisco is just dealing with so much right now, and we as restaurant operators and other business owners are really trying to organize to put a little bit more pressure on our elected and appointed city officials to really start to kind of hold them accountable for keeping our streets clean and safe. We're just dealing with a lot of property crime and mentally ill, drug addicted, those experiencing homelessness. So those are all sort of additional challenges that are now at the doorstep of every small business owner, restaurants obviously included. And because so much of the restaurant scene is now outside, the city has allowed, much like other cities, restaurants to build these parklets, these outdoor dining rooms. It's pushing everything outside. So now all of these problems are sort of far more visible, whether it's to the guest or to the operator.
They're literally right in your dining room now, for sure.
Correct.
So, okay, so that being said, you are dealing with, and we've seen the California Restaurant Association attempt to try to do some things to help get things on the back, at least back to a point of where the industry is somewhat represented. Your thoughts on how, especially when you look at state associations, what are your thoughts on how these state associations could potentially, take big steps, whether it's on relief funding? I know the NRA did a big play towards Capitol Hill on trying to get a specific relief fund set up for the restaurant industry. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any organizing going on within the state of California right now that's assisting operators in trying to get things moving, at least from a political standpoint, back to a very powerful position in the community, which is what they've always had? Anything that's helping move that along?
We do have the California Restaurant Association, which is the largest trade group in the state with respect to the restaurant industry. I think the biggest thing coming out of COVID is really just the need for restaurants to get organized. We as restaurant operators make up, whether it's locally or at a state level, but certainly at a national level, just such a tremendous percentage of just the local or city or state or national economy, just providing tens of millions of jobs, generating all of this revenue in the form of sales tax. We actually have a lot of power if we organize and we come together as one big group. I think it's just always been a big challenge to get operators together, and I say this as a former board member of the Golden Gate Restaurant Association. Just trying to get everyone organized, I think, has always been a challenge.
Yeah, it's a big test. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the models that are starting to evolve. We've seen so many different variants, especially coming out of fast casual. It seems like the most, if not one of the most innovative sectors in terms of shifting They were able to make a lot of changes on the fly, much like yourself. What are your thoughts on direct to consumer? So I've seen many brands that have started to do boxes, take away home meal kits, cook at home type product,
Sure.
packaged goods, et cetera. What are your thoughts on direct to consumer future for fast casual operators as being a business portion of what they might be doing for revenue?
Yeah, I think it's a great avenue to pursue. We actually just launched, and this was something that we worked on for almost a year. We launched a line of products with Williams Sonoma back in June, and it was a line of Souvla olive oils and spices and things along those lines. So that was a nice sort of value add to the and as a brand extension. I do think the direct to consumer thing, it very much depends on the brand. But I do think that it's in certain ways, I think somewhat of I don't want to go as far as saying that it is a novelty, but certainly back in March, April, when people were truly sheltering in place, that was kind of a fun way for people. Everyone was cooking at home. They were trying to really make the best of things. So this was a great way for them to support their favorite restaurants and cook these meal kits. I do think that we're seeing again now just like everyone is trying to get back to normal, trying to do their best to just to kind of get back to how the way things used to be. And so I think that we're seeing a little bit of a peak in these meal kits and these
Hmm.
extensions where people really just they want to go back out and enjoy restaurants the way that they
Yeah,
used to.
for sure.
So I'm not this isn't a knock towards that. I don't think that it's that putting all of your eggs into that basket is the best. I do think that it gives operators, this is a great opportunity for a brand extension, like I said, as we did with our line of spices and oils. But you still want to be able to give the guests what they want, and what
Oh
they
yeah.
want was what they've remembered your brand, your restaurant for.
Yeah, for sure. Digital technology, lots of new moving parts in many operators that kind of we're dealing with that. What were some of the things that you've found over this period of time that have been able to help you guys kind of sustain and potentially maybe shift how you're handling digital and technology for the future? Anything special that you guys have used or testing?
Yeah, well, one of the things, and we were working on this stuff pre-COVID. We've been a longtime partner of Square, the point of sale platform
Right.
and payments platform, and we were actually working directly with their product teams at the end of last year and the start of this year on their revamped Square online store. And so that's been, and so we launched that just sort of pre-COVID, and obviously had the opportunity to, while we were closed, continue to make some of those changes and really be pretty digital first. What was interesting in that experience is that we learned, and Souvla might be a little bit more of a fringe sort of edge case, if you will, but really working with the Square team to manage the volume and the sort of velocity of orders. Well, obviously the intent here was to be able to give people a contact-free means of ordering and picking up Souvla. What we learned in that process is that we have to find better ways to be able to throttle orders coming in. When
Yeah.
we reopened, we reopened two of our restaurants to start, and on those opening days, they were taking in within the first couple of minutes hundreds of orders to the
Oh,
point that we were completely overwhelmed. And obviously, this is like a good problem to have, but it is something to think about as brands continue to go more sort of digital first,
right.
where you have to start to really think about in the online world, how do you sort of manage the sort of quote unquote line? Normally
Hmm.
for a lot of fast casual brands,
Right.
you go, you leave the office, you go downstairs and you walk, to your favorite salad place or sandwich place, and you see a line of 20 people, and so now
Yeah.
you're able to
You're
sort of
self
understand
queued.
that. Exactly. Whereas if you're just ordering from your phone, you don't really necessarily know how busy that restaurant is at any given time. So that was really a big opportunity for us. When we reopened, we were really trying to push everything through the Square online store, and we had to turn it off on day 3 because we
Wow.
needed to really go back to the drawing board and understand how to better manage the inbound orders. And again, thinking about when the consumer wants to eat, everyone wants lunch at noon and dinner at 7, and any one establishment can only make a finite amount of
Exactly.
product in
Yeah.
those times. So that's going to be a big thing for operators, across the board. How do you deal with those peak volume times if you're not managing a physical line or a reservation book or any of those things?
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about two things. When you look at real estate and kind of the shift that's happening, you guys, of course, had a food truck active during all this time. Your thoughts, because I remember when we got a chance the first time I visited Souvla was about 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago. You had taken the initiative to do that special drive up window, so to speak. Not a drive up, it was a takeout window, but it was for the
Right.
Uber drivers. And I thought this was a perfect example of not going in and bothering the guest, and especially when you have a small footprint in restaurants, that floor space is so secure. So now when you're looking at the footprints of new restaurants, food truck, um, takeout or pickup windows, kiosks, alternative ways that guests could get food. What are you seeing as primary curbsides? Another one. What do you see as primary categories that you think is going to win, and stick with us over the next 5 years?
Sure. I think that, yeah, this curbside or walk up window thing that we launched, and that was our latest restaurant when you came by to
Yep,
see it. I mean, now you're basically seeing that happen in almost every restaurant. They're just kind
for
of
sure.
retrofitting it in kind of a funky way, just in the same way that we did with our other restaurants, where there's an order window and there is a pickup window.
Mhm.
I think you're really going to start to see that stay across the board, and
Yep.
probably done in a little bit more of an intentional way, much like we designed that restaurant that you saw, with a proper pickup window there, and the reserved space for the
For the
Caviar
parking.
or Uber,
Yeah.
for the driver, or also for the guest that's ordering online, that's on their way home. They can pull up, they can hop out, they can grab their
Right.
food. That's
Yeah.
about the best that we're going to be able to do in an urban environment where we don't have the luxury of drive-throughs. You're
Mhm.
obviously seeing a lot of the much larger brands, the ones that are doing very well, certainly in the QSR space, really are the ones that have those drive-throughs. And I think that you're going to start to see that again in a little bit more of a suburban application.
Yeah.
But I think also something along the lines of some sort of an outpost, like Sweetgreen's outpost model. I think
Right.
is really, really great, that they had intended for office buildings, but we might start to see that in little, like,
Neighborhoods. Yeah.
neighborhood hubs,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
there's someone with some sort of like a little kiosk that's just managing the pickup of these things. Interestingly enough,
Right.
you mentioned food trucks. We have the country's only frozen Greek yogurt truck that we do. That's more for sort of events, which who knows when events are going to come back. Interesting though that we haven't really seen a lot of the food trucks come back just yet.
That's been
And
a
I'm not really.
rarity. That's kind of
Yeah.
been a surprising one to me.
Yeah, no, I very much agree. Like, especially as I mentioned earlier about the closure of these streets, we haven't really seen much along the lines of food trucks. I think sort of you know we usually see them in more dense urban environments, the sort of the downtown,
Right.
five eyes, where you can do that. Obviously, with those areas pretty decimated, that's also something to be said. But certainly, I think more outdoor markets, things along those lines, gives
Yeah.
an opportunity for food trucks. But certainly, with respect to our growth and development, it's really about spaces that have far more outdoor dining, that we can sort of design with COVID in mind.
Interesting. I know San Francisco had a couple of food truck parks that were doing really well. Have they been able to hold on?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly. I think we're starting to see some of them come back,
Okay.
and
Right.
I think, yeah. So I'm not as connected in that that scene. But I just saw a couple things the other day where some of those are starting to kind of make their return back. So
Yeah.
I think it's more of a bigger opportunity to because outdoor farmers markets and all those are still happening, that becomes a great opportunity. It's obviously
Yeah.
can be a little bit of a double-edged sword though, with respect to coming into neighborhoods where there are local restaurants, and that being seen as sort of direct competition, unfair advantage.
Yeah.
We're all obviously just we're trying to stay alive right now, and to have someone else kind of come in and park their truck outside of your restaurant and potentially take revenue away from you, that can be
Bit of a
challenging.
problem.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
A couple of things here. When you think about the flow of inbound orders, because this is something I've talked to a few operators about, and it's really affected their operations because they switched to so much online and takeout. Kind of two questions here. One is, have you seen the shift from the consumer aspect of doing more takeout, meaning I'm going to come and get it, or third-party delivery there in your market? Is there a shift occurring, or are we still seeing third-party as a stronghold? What are you seeing in your market?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously know the Souvla numbers, but third party is still very much a stronghold, and I think that we've obviously seen that uptick, but I don't think that it's exponential in the way that everyone just thought that it was going to be all delivery and
Right,
no
right.
no takeout. I mean, we've seen about a 10-point increase in our delivery, with the rest of it still being in-person takeout. So now we're running about a 60-40, where we used to do about 30% delivery, we're doing about 40% delivery.
Okay.
And now that 60% is in-person takeout, obviously.
Wow.
Online ordering, or in person. And of course we're seeing, and here from where I sit in our office in SF, the continued consolidation of the third party delivery market.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously DoorDash's acquisition of Caviar, and that sort of recent merger together that we've had sort of front row seats to. Obviously the Uber Eats'
Postmates,
acquisition
Uber.
of Postmates, and everything else. But I do think that now that people are venturing, they're back to being outside. I think that March, April, May, people were taking, certainly here, we're taking this very seriously, and most people weren't really leaving their homes unless it was to go to the grocery store, so they were getting more delivered. Now I think people are just more comfortable being outside, and they have sort of because everyone is working from home more or less, they have the sort of additional time to be like, you know what, it's like, we're going to go order this food. It's like, let's go walk over, let's go take a walk, let's go walk 10 minutes, 15 minutes, let's go walk over and grab our food and walk back. Because honestly, right now, without sort of restaurants in their more sort of full service way, and certainly with the lack of bars, there's not a whole lot to do at night anymore, to be honest with you.
It's a change definitely in our lifestyle habits, that's for sure. Okay, so
For sure.
let's talk about the shift of the takeout delivery model that obviously be going to 100%, especially for you guys. So when you start to open restaurants back up in California, we're starting to see this in some of the other states. I'm seeing it right here in Florida, where I won't call it an imposition, but what's happening is the throughput of the takeout orders are starting to affect the operational back of house for the orders that are happening for the walk-ins or the people who are dining in. We still have limited dining, but there at least is dining in here in South Florida.
Sure.
So with that occurring, and we get back up to say 50% occupancy, or hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, we're back to normal. The idea is, by most of the pundits and experts I've talked with, is this is going to stick around. Takeout's going to probably be a much larger percentage of our business. So you almost have to reconsider the construct of how these restaurants are operating from an operational standpoint. Have you guys done anything to deal with that? Because you got to keep two people happy now. You got 50 takeout orders, and you got 6 orders in the line that are, a party of 6 that just walked in and they're ready to go. How are you guys expecting to see that kind of shift? Because that's a different model.
100%. But for us, it's actually business as usual. I mean, think about pre-COVID. We were 50% off premise. So
Yeah,
we
which is
were
very
we
high,
were
very high.
which is very high and quite unusual, and Souvla is a little unique in many ways, that being one of them. And so we've always, for 6.5 years, we've always dealt with this delicate balance of maintaining this exceptional quality of service and dining experience in the restaurant while doing a considerable amount of off premise. So for us, it's a little bit more about just getting back to what we used to do, and that's something that we know how to do very, very well. The biggest thing for us when we get there is how we deal with staffing, because we are, as I made mention, we're operating right now under limited hours. So we used to be a 7-day a week operation, 14 services, 11 hours a day, just basically nonstop. We're down to a 5-day a week operation, 7 services, so dinner only Wednesday through Friday, and then lunch and dinner Saturday and Sunday, and we're doing it all with a considerably smaller team, both in the front of the house and in the back of the house. We're actually leveraging our commissary, which has a much larger physical footprint, to do a lot of the prep and production off-site, so that we can have fewer people in our kitchens doing all of the prep work, because all of our kitchens, like most restaurant kitchens, are quite small. So we're really mindful of the health and safety sort of component of this. So for us, it's really just about that slow transition back into kind of what we used to do. And I think for us, we'll probably explore outdoor dining, towards the start of the year. We are playing this, I would say, probably more conservatively than many other brands. And that sort of starts with me, and my own sort of beliefs, and just making sure that we keep our team as safe as we possibly can. So
yeah, for sure. Charles, last question here. California, it's been a hot zone for business defectors, people moving out of California with their businesses under the current climate. What are you seeing as a leader really in Northern California? You're one of the cornerstones of kind of the business community there. What are your thoughts about what's happening with the state of California?
It's very, very real. It's very real, and quite frankly, I do not blame the people that are doing it. If you have the ability to work remotely, and you don't need to physically be in a very expensive city like San Francisco, that is now sort of devoid of so many things that used to make it great,
right?
Why stay? And that concerns me as a business owner, because so many of those people that are asking themselves those questions are our core clientele,
right?
So we are starting to rethink with our growth. How do we, if we're going to start to add new restaurants starting next year, can we go to these places that so much of our core demographic are now moving to? And that could be just outside of San Francisco. We used to sort of eschew the whole suburb, suburban move. It's something that is kind of back on the table. Honestly, everything is back on the table now, Paul.
Yeah, for sure.
But we don't have the luxury of working from home. We don't have the luxury of just picking up our business and saying we're going to relocate to Florida or Texas or another place where it's cheaper to live and the taxes are lower, or any of those things. We have an obligation to our community here in San Francisco. So many people inside the city and even outside the city that commute in see Souvla as a utility. Really something that's kind of this, like, it is a staple, and it's really our obligation to continue to provide that to those that stay. I think that's kind of where we're at right now, but it's definitely something that is top of mind.
Yeah, Petaluma, here we come.
Exactly.
Nice little community for those listening in. Nice little community.
Very much is.
Across the bay in California.
Yeah.
Charles, it's always great having you on the show. I love your insights, and I'm glad to see Souvla has emerged on the other side of this. I've been worried about a lot of brands, and I knew that you guys had closed, and I was really hoping that a reopening was going to occur. So I'm glad to see everything's at least starting to move back to some normalcy. I know we've got a lot ahead of us and a lot of
We
challenges.
do.
Thanks for stopping in on the show today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Paul. Always good to see you.
All right. Okay, so
All
all
right.
of you guys listening in and ladies over to Fast Casual Nation, maybe you're on iTunes, over on Spotify, drop us a review. We love to get those ratings. And I love also to read your comments. Those are the things that I think for me are the most important in understanding if we're delivering to our audience what you're wanting to see, hear, and read about here on Fast Casual Nation. If you have an idea maybe of a great leader or a fast casual concept that you think should be on it, maybe it's a technology or a service that should be helping this industry, shoot that over to producer@foodabletv.com. And of course, you can always hit me up on Twitter. My name's Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time on Fast Casual Nation.